What's going on, everyone? Coming at you with the final game from my most recent locals from the last tournament that I played in. This final matchup is going to be Donquixote Doflamingo against Crocodile. And I think this is a pretty tough matchup for Crocodile just because of the amount of card advantage that Purple Dofi can generate. We are going to see the Buena Festa come out here on turn 1, which, you know, if you need to see a certain piece early, I think it's really good to play that. And they are going to see that 4-cost Uda here. Uda is a fantastic card in Purple Dofi, as well as a lot of different purple decks, and I think it's a little bit underrated, but being able to cheat it out also playing other big body is really nice. We're going to pass turn back to our opponent here with the 2 non-active. We do have a Dragon Twister in hand, so you know, if our opponent does decide to swing, we can bomb deck the Buena Festa here. They're going to swing 6 here at us. We're going to use the Twister here to bomb deck the Buena Festa here and get that body off board, and then we almost put it on the bottom of our deck, but our opponent's then going to play a Sugar here. Sugar is a card that's a bit awkward to play around, but you know, we can still play around it. And going second, there's tons of different options that we have here. We do have a couple of 1-drops in hand that we could use to maybe proc the effect here, but we're going to go ahead and play Sasaki. Sugar effect is mandatory, so it will have to activate there. I have 5 cards in hand, so that Sasaki will let me basically recycle that hand, just shuffle it, and draw something new. I definitely think that having a fresh hand is super duper important, especially when it comes to, like, when you're looking at playing Croc, there are a lot of cards that you absolutely need to see. I think going first, you basically have to see a 10-drop Kaido, or things like 3000 Worlds or Red Rock. We do see a 3000 Worlds in hand, and then we're going to use that Crocodile to swing at the Sugar here, and then we'll pass turn to our opponent with 1 non-active. A bit of Dawn mismanagement here on the early turns. I could have swung 6 at the Sugar, I guess. It doesn't really matter that much. But now we're in a spot where, you know, we have a body on board. Our opponent has to kind of clear it, and they definitely do want to make plays. They're just realizing now that they have the same sleeves for their Dawn and their life, and they accidentally put 4 Dawn cards into their life. So what we ended up doing was just taking the Dawn back and just dealing 4 cards into life, just because no swings have been done at life. So I was just like, yeah, it's fine. Like, these are mostly for fun, these local tournaments, and at this point we're kind of trying to grow the scene in the city where I live, so it's more important for people just to kind of have fun and be able to play through than being a stickler for rules at this point. So with that being said, you know, there's a couple of plays that they could make here. They definitely want to clear the Sasaki, but swinging only 5 at it feels pretty good for me, because that's just a 2k counter out of hand to protect it. And I think, like, having this body on board that's going to be able to put pressure on our opponent is kind of nice. They are going to pay 4 for a Uda here. That Uda is going to be a good blocker for them. And then they're going to pass turn back to us. That being said, we do have that 3000 Worlds in hand, so that Uda is going to go back to the bottom of the deck. And then we'll be able to swing with our Sasaki and our leader, again, putting some pressure on. So we'll pay 4 here for the 3000 Worlds on the Uda, and forcing Uda to go down there. And then we still do have 2 Dawn active, so we can swing 6 and 5. We'll swing 6 with the Sasaki here, and then they'll take that first swing, and then we'll swing 5 with leader here, and they will also opt to take that as well, going down to 2 life. I think against Purple Flamingo, you're basically expecting them to take the first 2 swings most times, depending on what they have in their hand. This is a 7 Dawn turn for them, and I believe they just pulled Luffy off the top of their life there, so they're going to swing at the Sasaki for 5. Again, we're going to protect it using a Sasaki of our own. And then we are going to see that Luffy into Uda combo that we so dearly love to play against. And they're going to active 2 Dawn for their leader effect, and put us in a position where, you know, it's a bit difficult of a spot to be in. We didn't see any of our Centaurus early, so getting that Pacifista engine against this deck in specific, I think, is very important for Crocodile, because, you know, my only threat on board right now is this Sasaki. So we're gonna opt to go ahead and swing 7 here at leader, with Sasaki, kind of making sure that like they can't use Uda, and it's not a free block for Luffy. They're gonna end up paying 2, and they're gonna use a Thunder Bagua, which is gonna ramp them 1, so they can play a 10 drop next turn, which, you know, it's fine. And then we're gonna swing again 7 net leader, which they're going to opt to take, and we see a Spiderweb off the top, and then we're gonna play a Missile Sunday for 3. That All Sunday can grab back either the 3000 Worlds or the Twister that's in my trash. I was thinking like the 3000 Worlds is probably good to deal with this Uda. I figured a 10 drop was gonna come down next turn, based on the fact that like they want to ramp there. They opt to do so and play the 10 drop to freeze my leader and the Sasaki here, which is again completely fine with me. I'm not too worried about it. They swing 5 at the life here, which I opt to take, and it is a Dragon Twister, so I'll bounce the Uda back to hand here, which is pretty good. They opt to just pass turn back to me without swinging with Luffy. They could swing Luffy at Sasaki here, but again, I think that's not necessary for them to do. And then I have a play here that I think is fairly good. I have 10 drop in my hand. I can bounce the Sasaki back to my hand. It's not going to do much. It's going to get swung over. So I'll use the Kaido to bounce Luffy and then bounce Sasaki. And then I'll pass turn to my opponent. Just getting that Sasaki back to hand gives me a bit of extra counter power, as well as it would have died for free next turn. There's no way that I'm going to protect it from a 10 drop swing at it. Our opponent is going to go ahead and replay that Luffy that we just bounced to hand, and the Uda is in hand as well, so we are going to see that Luffy into Udo come down again. And at this point, like the 10 drop Doflamingo can kind of swing for free, but they're going to swing 6 here at my life, and I think it's important to stay around 3 life. We do see, I think, a 3000 Worlds off the top, so we can use that on the Uda, which is nice. And then there's going to be a 10 drop, which we will block, and we'll grab back a Twister from the Missile Sunday, I believe. I think Twister in the situation is probably the best thing that we can grab, just so that we're ensuring that we're not going to be in a spot where we're unable to counter out of things. The 10 drop Kaido here can put a lot of pressure on my opponent's board, just because of the fact that it's like a relatively huge body that they're going to have difficulty swinging over. And I'm just kind of planning out my turn here. So we're going to end up paying 4 for 3000 Worlds to bomb deck the Uda again. It's just too much pressure with the resting, and it kind of stops me from wanting to play blockers. So then we swing, I think, 12 at leader here. Yeah, we swing 12 at leader. They opt to pay 2 for a Punk Gibson and then a 2K, and they were blocking with the Luffy as well. So like, that's not enough if it's not blocked. So are you blocking with Luffy? And he's like, yeah, I am. Okay. So now to myself, I'm thinking, all right, well, I just got 2 cards out of hand and I got the block. I could swing here at the Luffy, and so I opt to swing at the Luffy. I think again this is for 11, and I'm like, if I can get rid of this Luffy, even if they have another one in hand, it's probably not going to be as impactful. They pay 2 more for a Punk Gibson plus a 1K, and I'm like, ugh, all right, well, that's fine, I guess, but that's just cards out of hand at this point. Again, I'm not really at risk of losing my Kaido, but it is what it is. I probably should have just gone at life there, and then got them down to 0 life, and then there's a lot more pressure on my opponent's board, because he's got no life left. Unfortunately, like, my leader effect's pretty dead this game, but that's all right. He can swing, but he also, I think he wants to play a Luffy into Nami here and get some more search, because he's got 4 cards in hand and none of them have counter, which I didn't know. So like, swinging at life there would have been super impactful if I'd done that instead, because he wouldn't have been able to get out of it. So he goes to swing 7 at my life here, which we're gonna take there. And it is a Centauro, but I think that Centauro is a bit too late. He swings 10, and then the 10k swing, I'm like, all right, let's counter out of 10. So I pitch 3 2ks, because that's like an exact counter, so we love that. And then our opponent does go ahead and play another Luffy, so that's it's annoying. He does play the Nami off that as well, and he searches his top 3, and I think he grabs a Brook, because it's like that, or it's like a Baccarat, it looks like, and he's got 2 cards in hand, both with no counter. So at this point, like, I'm like, oh, I wish I knew that he had such little counter in hand. because I could have just, you know, really pressured my opponent's life last turn. So, but it's hard to say because, like, generally this deck has a ton of counter to play against, but it is what it is. I do draw a Kuma off of the top there, so the Kuma is actually pretty nice for me. He has the Brook, so like I could swing 12 here with my Kaido at life, which I do at the start of the turn here. I swing 12 at life, so he's got a choice to either take it or give up the Luffy, and he ends up taking it, and it's another Luffy. And I'm like, okay, at this point, do I go swings or do I just play blockers? I drop a Kuma down, and then I pay 4 for a Pacifista blocker, just kind of walling up a little bit, and then I'm leaving 2 Don up. I probably don't even need to swing a 5 here because I just end up blocking, so I just end up passing turn back to my opponent. Leaving up 2 for a Twister I think is good here. I definitely want my opponent to overreach in this position and swing with one of these Luffy blockers, just because of like the fact that they didn't counter out of that 12k swing, because that's just an event plus a 2k. It probably says that there's no events in hand, or there's no 2ks in hand, so I probably should have pressured a bit harder, use some of that tempo just to kind of go aggressive. A 7k swing though could have just been blocked in a 1k, but at the time it's like, from myself playing this deck, I know that I usually have a ton of counter in hand and a ton of cards in hand, so we're going to see a 6k swing at leader, and then they're going to pay 1 for the Nami effect here, looking top 3. And they end up grabbing, looks like a Shigi, I think is what they grab. Bomb decking a 10 drop feels pretty good for me though, so they're going to grab the Shiki, so they are going to have a 2k in hand at this point. No event cards though, so that's good. They don't have a ton of counter, and I ended up taking the first swing here from the Nami. Again, I really wanted to bait my opponent into swinging with their Luffys at this game, because I know that, again, I have these 2 blockers. I know they have 4 attacks, and I'm thinking, like, okay, if I can bait these Luffy swings out, then I am in a position where I can potentially go for game. And, like, yeah, they could put out a big swing here and drop a Luffy, but they're going to end up paying 5 here, I believe, for a Diamante instead, which is, I think it's all right. I think it would have been stronger to play a Luffy in this situation, just because it's an awkward body for me to deal with. Yeah, I believe he opts to go for the Diamante instead. So he puts 3 Dawn under his leader here and swings at my life. And I'm like, all right, well, like, what do I do here? Do I take this swing? Like, do I block and play a Pacifista out? I have a Twister. It's an 8k swing. It's probably the best time that I'm ever going to have to play this Twister, just because it's an exact counter and it's going to allow me to get out of the swing perfectly. So I end up using the Twister here, and getting out of that 8k swing. And I think at that point, it kind of tells my opponent that, like, I don't really want to go for game because I only have 3 swings and you have 3 blockers. I don't want to go hard at you. He does swing with a 10k here, and I probably should have blocked this one, but I ended up taking it, just to guarantee that I have, you know, I have both my blockers on board. They do still have 5 Dawn up, so I wasn't sure what they were going to do with that 5 Dawn, but I was like, oh, they're probably going to have a Tesoro come down here because they need to start generating card advantage again. And I'm like, all right, I need something that's going to bottom deck that Tesoro if possible. And there is one in hand, but I think they're just deciding if they want to play Tesoro or Diamante. Both are great options, but I think Tesoro would have been better. They would have just had too much card advantage, and they would have been able to run away with the game. So I'm like, all right, Tesoro's going to be tough to deal with, but I can really pressure my opponent. I can use leader effect on a 5-drop if they play it, so I'm not feeling too worried about that. And, you know, potentially if I have a 3000 worlds, I can use that. It just, like, there's tons of different things. I'm really hoping for a red rock in this situation, just because that would push for game. But they do end up playing the Diamante. I'm like, all right, well, that's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. And they end up passing turn back to me with no event card in hand. They don't actually active their Dawn, and I did notice that. I didn't say anything. I didn't really notice they didn't active their Dawn. I know it's a mandatory effect, but if I had a red rock in hand right now, I probably just have game, because I just red rock, bounce the Luffy to the bottom, and then I can leader effect, bounce the Diamante to hand, and then I can just swing Kaido. They'll have to block with the Luffy, and then I can just load up leader, swing 10. If they get out of that, then I would just swing 5-5, and that should be game. But yeah, this turn is kind of tough for me, in the sense that, like, it's kind of pivotal. Do I go aggressive here with this Kaido? Do I swing away because they have 3 blockers? I could like swing Kaido, and then I could put some Dawn underneath Kuma, swing. So I swing Kaido 12, and they opt to block with the Diamante. I probably could have swung with the smaller guys first, and then I end up swinging 7 at Nami here, and I kind of wish that I swung a bigger number, but I think in my mind I was like, hey, I have these 2 blockers in hand, I gotta play them. And like looking at their hand, they don't have a ton of counter. They have 3k counter total in hand right now. So if I had seen a red rock, I would have been in a really good spot to even if I had just like swung smaller guys, I think it would have been a good spot as well. But we pay 3 for a Missile Sunday, and then we pay 3 for another Missile Sunday, and now we've got 4 blockers on board. They have 4 attacks, so I wasn't familiar with anything in Dofi that could really get rid of one of my blockers. But in my mind, I was like, even if they do play that 5 cost card that lets you rest and bounce, I could just, if they targeted anything on my board, it's fine, because 1, my Missile Sunday is going to grab back that Twister that I left 2 down up for. 2, that means they're not playing another Luffy blocker, and then 3, that means they're really going to go for it, which means I have game. So I think in this position, I was like, let's just wall up, let's play as defensive as possible, and then I still have this 12 drop Kaido, 12,000 power Kaido that's gonna just keep poking and eventually wear down the resources in my opponent's hand. They end up swinging 10 at me here. I do block with a Missile Sunday, and I will grab back the Dragon Twister here. Again, if there was a red rock in my trash, I would definitely grab the red rock instead, just because it would just put a lot of pressure on my opponent, knowing that if I play it, they can't really play a Luffy. So they're gonna swing 6 here at me. Just trying to think about like the best play to make here. I don't have any 2Ks in hand, and I'm just looking at my trash, and I know there's a 3,000 Worlds in there, and there's another Dragon Twister in there. And I end up blocking with the Missile Sunday, and I end up grabbing back a 3,000 Worlds, just in case they play like an Uda or something like that. At least I can get rid of the Uda and still swing freely with my Kaido. I wouldn't want the Uda to block, for example, and then rest one of my blockers. So that was the thought process on grabbing back the 3,000 Worlds. And then, you know, my worst fears are realized when they play another Luffy, and then they play, I think they play a Brook off the Luffy. I'm not 100% sure, but he's like, oh yeah, there was 3 Luffys in my life, so I have 3 Luffys here. I know that's probably annoying, but here they are. There is a Spiderweb in hand at this point, which is a very annoying card to deal with, just because you can get 2 blocks off, and I ended up playing the Brook off of that. So at this point, like, he's gonna leave 2 Dawn up and active 2 more. So in my mind, I'm like, all right, he's got a ton of counter in hand, and I do draw another blocker. So I'm like, all right, maybe I can make some plays here. So I have the 3,000 Worlds for the Brook, so I can at least deal with one of these bodies. Potentially, if I load up my Kaido just enough, that I can deal with one of the Luffys as well. I probably should have swung, like, I should have 3,000 World and then swung 14 with Kaido and then played Dofi. But I swing 12 with Kaido at leader here, and they end up paying 2 for a Spiderweb on the Luffy, and then they use a 2k Shiki here, so that gets them to 13. So even 13k, like 1 Dawn committed on Kaido, would have killed that Luffy. But in my mind, I was like, like I don't know if I if I can like math this out properly. So I pay 4, I get the Brook. I guess I would have had 1 Dawn left over to swing with that Kaido, so it's a bit of Dawn mismanagement from me. I could have gotten 2 bodies off of the board. But, you know, it's a learning experience. It was my first tournament piloting this Crocodile deck, and I'm just, like, not 100% sure on the limits of it. I end up playing a 3-drop Dofi here, and looking at the top 5. I think I see nothing that I want there, so those are all going to the bottom of the deck. I feel like next turn I kind of have to push for it. So I end up passing turn back with with 3 Dawn active. So yeah, like a 13k swing with Kaido. Kind of kicking myself because that would have that would have been, you know, pretty good. My opponent does draw a Buena Festa here, so they don't have a ton of cards in hand, and they end up playing that Buena Festa. Looking at the top 5, I think they end up grabbing a Tony Chopper 2k off of it. At this point, they needed 2Ks, I guess, and that kind of told me that I had to go for game. Because I'm like, all right, well, he countered out exactly, but he only has 3 cards in hand, and like, is he gonna push for lethal here? I guess like one thing that my opponent doesn't know is like if I have another Pacifista blocker in hand, this Kuma, like I have technically 4 blockers potentially, but I mean he could swing. He has to get every attack through is the problem. Like I have 3 blockers, he's got 5 swings potentially. He knows I have a Dragon Twister, so like that's at least 2 Dawn committed. But I would just save the Twister until the last possible second. So I end up blocking with the Doflamingo here. He swings 9, which I'm like, all right, well, I will I'll Twister plus 1k out of that and get out of that swing. He still has 5 Dawn active, so he pays 5 and he plays a Glittasoro. And I'm like, all right, well, that's telling me that you're probably not going to go aggressive, and you only have 2 cards in hand. I know one of them's a Chopper, so this is probably my last chance to do it for this game. It's my last chance to go. I don't have a Twister in hand anymore. My Kaido's 12. And I do have this this Mihawk in hand. I'm like, well, if I get rid of one of the blockers, then I have 4 swings to his 2 blockers, and he only has 2 cards in hand, so I only have to get 1 attack through. So I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, well, I probably want to swing Kaido first, and then if Kaido, if he blocks it, and he doesn't have like a spider web, then I'm knowing that, because I know he has a 2k. So if he has spider web plus 2k, then I know that I lose the game. Or if he has like a Punk Gibson plus 2k, then I lose the game. So I'm just like, all right, I probably can't last one more turn on this board. I have to go aggressive here and just push for game. Otherwise, it's just game over anyways. So thinking it through, I'm like, okay, 12k swing from Kaido. If he blocks and Spiderweb or Punk Gibsons, then I just lose. Otherwise, if he just lets the blocker die, then I can go for game. So he lets the blocker die, and I'm like, all right, now I have to go for game. So I'm like, all right, well, if I get rid of one of these Luffy's, then I have to get 1 swing through, and I still have 2 more swings. So I'm like, screw it. I think I have to do this. And then I end up paying 9. And I dropped the Mihawk on him to bottom deck the 1 Luffy here. And then I'm like, all right, let's swing Kuma 5. And they 2k out of that first swing. I'm like, all right, well, then we'll swing Pacifista 5. They block with the Luffy. And then I swing 6 at leader. And it's another Luffy. And then that ends up being the game for me. Croc takes it. And I ended up finishing this local tournament 2-1. I hope you guys did enjoy. But until next time, Monty out.